scary to me.
Well, especially with the border being open and they're letting rapists in. It's fucking, you know what I'm saying, though? It's like you're just...
yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's the best time to repeal that.
Yeah. If we're going to follow your logic and you claim they got rapists coming in, maybe we should also keep abortion. But, I think we got plenty of homegrown rapists too. But,
Stavros Halkias was a guest on Theo Vaughn's podcast, and he had some really interesting takes on politics and the Democratic Party. Really interesting takes. We're going to take a look at clips of Stavros, some call him Stavi, because it's easier to say, on Theo Vaughn's show. Emma Vigeland of The Majority Report broke all this down. We'll take a look at clips of her, and I will share my thoughts as well. Let's get into this together.
Stavros Halkias, I just call him Stavi, and I listen to his podcast on occasion. I regret not listening to Cumtown, but forgive me, Stavi. I was put off by the name and just chose not to listen at all. I thought it would be gross, but turns out I've become such a big fan of his comedy. I loved his Netflix special, Fat Rascal. I've recommended it to so many people, and I've started listening to his new show, Stavi's World, and he is just like... He's a great comedian. He's the rare cis white male, or he would say he's Greek, but cis male comedian. Let's just put it out there. Although, no, in one of his bits, he's like, I'm white, but someone said, you're not, whatever. Cis male comics who never punches down. And so, like, a lot of liberals are learning about him recently because he went on Theo Vaughn, and turns out he's not a right-winger, a rare comedian who isn't one of Joe Rogan's endangered species of comics who just care about, like, vaccine mandates and, you want to put on a dress and call yourself a woman? Wow, we need more of that on our airwaves. Anyway, Stavros went on Theo Vaughn's show and just talked about progressive values in a common sense way. We need more of this for sure.
And watch how he redirects some of the right-wing slash sort of insensitive remarks from Theo Vaughn, which of all these guys, I think Theo Vaughn might mean the best, but I don't think that's a low bar. But I think
the ecosystem doesn't allow anyone who means well to even learn anything.
It's clear that
the Roganverse is actively a place that means you're just mired in stupidity, and so you don't learn. And
kind of like innuendo and conspiracy theory, or sort of like half-baked ideas. So I think I think Stav does a good job here of misdirecting some of the potential for bigotry slash misinformation or whatever you want to call it that Theo would maybe espouse with a less credulous guest to push back on him.
Right.
What are people truly scared of, do you think, when they talk about Trump? But what is it? I kind of start to wonder, what do people be scared of?
I can tell you so for me, I didn't love either candidate here. I really didn't understand being enthusiastic about either candidate. I think, I'm not a Trump guy, obviously. I think he is dangerous in the things that I'm scared of the most. And the thing that made me lean towards Kamala was, more than anything, was the Supreme Court, and that it would be, if it's put under like far right control for the next however long. We've already seen, women's right to, over their bodies, the abortion, Roe v. Wade's been overturned, which I think is really dangerous. That's going to really affect women's health care. Already in states that banned it, you see they're getting less just general OBGYN care because it's more dangerous to be a doctor in those states. So we don't think about shit that trickles down. So it's harder to get just general health care, let alone abortion, in Texas now for women. And that's only going to get harder in rural states. And I think, for me, that was the number one issue. Yeah. That's really scary to me.
Well, especially with the border being open and they're letting rapists in. It's fucking, you know what I'm saying, though? It's like you're just... Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's the best time to repeal that.
If we're going to follow your logic and you claim they got rapists coming in, maybe we should also keep abortion. But, I think we got plenty of homegrown rapists too. But, You know? Yeah.
We've got our own.
Sure.
Some union guys.
We've got some heirloom American wrists for sure.
Now, before we get into the rest of this, when do you hear this kind of talk from a comedian, a popular comedian on YouTube or on a podcast or whatever? And, when it's comedians, it's typically they're making jokes about trans people or whatever, right? So, Theo Von doesn't strike me as, I forget what his name is on the Majority Report here with Emma, the producer, said Theo seems to mean well. And I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think he seems like a bad guy. He doesn't seem to know a lot about politics. Stavros seems to be much more informed than what Theo is. And it's interesting to see someone like this on one of these kind of bro podcasts that's part of that Joe Rogan ecosystem like Emma Vigeland was talking about. Can this type of talk, we will get into this more, and he's actually approaching things as a leftist, someone well to the left of Kamala Harris, and he talks about how that he wasn't really for either candidate. With Trump, we know we're going to get more tax cuts. We're going to get more deregulation, tax cuts for the rich. We're going to get more deregulation. We're going to get nothing that benefits regular people. And on the Democratic side with Kamala Harris, she was for Medicare for all at one point. She dropped that in this campaign. And, she didn't have a lot in the way of policies that were really going to help regular people. But with Stavi here, actually approaching things from the left, he says basically the one politician that he likes is Bernie, and maybe that can penetrate through to some of these overwhelmingly young males who are listening to Theo's show.
Jesus Christ.
But I think that's the number one thing that scares me is about that, because it's not only that's the first step, and I think you can really see stuff that we take for granted as progress. Gay marriage is another thing. There's a really weird cultural, I think this is what happens anytime the party that's backed by the powers that be, big business, the rich people, the richest people in the world want far right politicians. And I think if they
still,
absolutely, without question.
I feel like tech is now. I just feel like the party.
Elon Musk is a huge Trump guy.
That's a good point.
I think rich people will support whoever's in power, number one, but they want to transfer wealth from the poor to the rich. They've been really good at doing it. The biggest issue, I think, the reason the Democrats lost is because they pretend that there is no problem. I think inflation. I think a big part of inflation is that companies realize they can just charge you more and say it's somebody else's fault. A lot of it's price gouging. That's true. And
everything gets so much more expensive.
And companies are, some of it is just real inflation, but some of it is companies are hiding behind inflation. And Democrats did nothing to stop price gouging, right? They didn't even say they were going to do it. You can't tell people that things are going good when they're just clearly not. The most important issue for people is that things are fucking more, they have no health care. Wage inequality is out of control. People's wages have not kept pace with how much bosses are earning.
Yeah, well, what percent? Bernie Sanders said greatly that he thought if AI starts to happen for companies, right? So companies are making more money.
We don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you don't get anything and we keep all the fucking profits. And I do think, I think we talked about it a little bit last time where it's like AI as a tool fucking do creative shit. It's so weird when it's like it should be making normal people's lives easier. It shouldn't just be for rich people to be able to charge less. There should be some protections for workers, and we should be able to you should be able to buy a house, all these regular issues that weren't really hit on. It was just, well, you got to vote for us because the other person's worse. And even though I think that is true, that's not a winning message. That's nothing, especially when the other side is offering, they're at least saying shit's bad. Well, yeah. And they're saying it's for the wrong reasons. I don't think it's immigrants' fault. It's definitely not for trans people aren't the people buying up houses and not letting you buy it. You know what I mean? But at least they're saying something's wrong, and they're saying some shit, in my opinion. They're trying to make it culture war stuff. They're trying to divide people who should be on the same side by saying, gay people are bad, trans people are bad, when it's like the people trying to are rich people. That's how it's always been. That's a tale as old as time.
Boom. I didn't even want to interrupt that because that's a conversation where you could easily imagine having that with somebody in your life who voted for Donald Trump. And Stavi approaches it in this incredibly accessible way, even when Theo is making kind of some dumb points. Like that point about, I shouldn't be judgmental, but it's just like, how can you say that about tech at this point?
No,
I mean, it's outdated. In part, this is the problem with the Democrats embracing the tech industry until, what do you know, eventually they get massive and they have shareholders and they're multi-billion-dollar corporations that can't have reached their ceiling with growth, but investors expect growth eternally. That's why they're investing in your company. And then who do they turn to? Well, you need to rig the system in your favor. Republicans are the better party to do that for you. And that's exactly how this kind of thing goes.
And Emma Vigeland's right with what she's saying here. I don't think you go after, and she's not, but I don't think you go after Theo Von. Theo Von is just somebody who's just not, he seems to be, he would be the definition of low information voter. He just doesn't seem to know a lot. And he's gotten tied in, I'm sure, with some of these tech bros now. I mean, maybe through Joe Rogan. I don't know if he's had Elon Musk on a show or has met Joe Rogan, or met Elon Musk rather, but Theo's probably like, you'd meet Elon Musk and he's probably like, oh, he's nice to me. He's a nice guy or whatever. Theo's making plenty of money right now, so he's not really going to be affected likely by any of Donald Trump's or Elon Musk's or Vivek Ramaswamy's policies. So you don't go after Theo Von. But Stavi here hits on so many great points. AI, AI could really be something to benefit our lives instead of just making more and more money for rich people. Income inequality, healthcare. Like he points out here, the Republicans have done such a good job of getting people mad at immigrants or gay. It used to be gay people, and now that's a little not as acceptable to bash gay people, but now it's bashing trans people and these other groups. They're not the reason why you don't have good health care or you're not making enough money or whatever. It's the very, very rich, the multi, people with hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. There's such massive wealth inequality in our country, and most people don't realize it. And Stavi really hits on these good points here. But like he said, the Democrats didn't have a good answer for people because they're taking money from many of these same people that the Republicans are taking money from. And until the Democrats actually go with a truly progressive set of policies, they're going to continue to lose to these fake populists like Donald Trump. And during Kamala Harris's campaign, they were trying so hard to reach out to the quote unquote mainstream moderate Republicans, the people that would vote for somebody like Liz Cheney, and that failed miserably for them. Instead of trying to cater to their base, the Democrats, like the Republicans do, cater to their base, the Democrats want to go after these mythical Republicans out there that they think are going to vote for them, and they aren't. So Stavi is exactly right when he says neither candidate was great, and what we need is a true populist, a progressive populist, not a fake populist like Donald Trump and some of these other right-wingers, and would adopt policies, basically the policies that Bernie Sanders has been pushing for decades. So I think it's great that Stavi is saying these things. We need more comedians like him out there going on these big shows like Theo Von's and saying these things. Let me know in the comments, do you know other comedians that have a pretty big platform that are like Stavros and are saying these things from the actual left instead of just from the right at worst, or Democratic establishment positions kind of at best? Do you know other comedians like Stavros that are out there saying these things? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about Stavros, what he had to say in these Theo Von clips. Let me know what you think about Emma Vigeland and her assessment of this. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. The channel's growing really quickly, but if you want to see more content like this from me, make sure to give me a subscribe so I can continue to grow. This is Chris on Culture. I will see you in the next video.